If you could stand on the floor of Lake Lanier in 1950, the first thing you would notice is the silence. There is no water, no marinas, no fiberglass hulls cutting wakes across 38,000 acres, no docks stretching into blue. Instead, you're standing in a red clay river valley. Farms stitched together by fence lines, churches rising above pine trees, dirt roads curving toward small crossroads communities along the Chestati and Chattahoochee rivers. And none of it was supposed to survive the decade. Today, millions of people boat and fish here every year. The lake is one of the most visited in the United States. But beneath those docks and vacation homes lies a drowned landscape. 56,000 acres of land, nearly 250 families displaced, 19 cemeteries relocated or abandoned, entire communities erased by a rising waterline. This is not a story about a haunted lake. It is a story about a valley that was asked to disappear. In this reconstruction, I'm using modern AI tools to rebuild a world that wasn't erased by fire or war, but by a federal decision and a rising waterline. The deliberate displacement of 250 families so that Atlanta could have a reservoir. What happened here is one of the most overlooked and quietly devastating transformations in Georgia history. And the reason most people don't know it is simple. The lake is so beautiful that it makes the world beneath it easy to forget. If you value these deep reconstructions of lost places, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Long before surveyors marked the future shoreline, this valley had already survived upheaval. For centuries, it was part of Cherokee territory. In the 1830s, forced removal dismantled that world and transferred the land to settlers who divided it into farms and small towns. By the early 20th century, the valley had stabilized into something rooted. Gainesville became the commercial center of Hall County. Communities like Oscarville, Flowery Branch, and Claremont anchored families whose surnames repeated across generations. Headstones marked decades of continuity. Fields were worked by sons and grandsons of the men who first cleared them. Oscarville carried an earlier scar. In 1912, after accusations against black residents and a highly publicized legal case, racial violence swept through Forsyth County. Night riders forced more than 1,000 black citizens to flee. Land was seized. Homes were abandoned. A thriving black farming community was driven out in what became known as the racial cleansing of 1912. Oscarville survived, altered, partially emptied, but it remained. Then came the dam. By the late 1940s, Atlanta was expanding rapidly. The Chattahoochee River was unreliable for both flood control and drinking water. Federal planners identified a narrow stretch north of the city as the ideal site for a reservoir. The reports were clinical: 56,000 acres to acquire, approximately 250 families to relocate, 19 cemeteries to move when possible. On paper, it was an engineering solution. On the ground, it was personal. The Henderson family received their final acquisition notice in February 1956. James Henderson had farmed 140 acres along the Chattahoochee for 32 years. His father had cleared the original timber in 1903. His mother was buried on a ridge above the river. The Army Corps offered him $4,200 for the property: house, barns, fencing, fields, everything. He argued. He hired a lawyer. He lost. By October, the water had reached the lower pasture. By November, it swallowed the fence line. By December, he and his wife loaded what they could into a truck and drove north toward Dawsonville. The house, still standing, still furnished, disappeared beneath the surface in January 1957. Multiply that story by hundreds. Some negotiated better settlements. Some fought longer in court. Some left quietly. All of them left. The transformation was not explosive. It was incremental, measured in fence posts, in rising water lines, in the slow erasure of roadbeds that had once connected neighbors. In 1957, Lake Sidney Lanier was officially dedicated. Within decades, it became what planners promised: flood control for Atlanta, hydroelectric power for the region, and one of the most visited recreational lakes in the United States. Waterfront communities expanded, marinas multiplied, tourism grew. Millions visited each year. From a drone today, the lake is undeniably beautiful. And that is the complication. The lake worked. The plan succeeded. The families who were displaced made it possible. Most of them never came back. Under the summer heat, beneath fishing boats, jet skis, and children diving off docks, lie the old roadbeds, bridge frames, cemetery walls, foundations that once held kitchens and living rooms. This valley had already survived Cherokee removal. It had endured racial violence in 1912. It had weathered economic hardship and storms. Then it was asked to trade its geography for someone else's future. Most of the families who left were not wealthy. They did not command political leverage. They were working people asked to move because the city downstream needed drinking water. And they did. The bottom of Lake Lanier is not a mystery. It is a map of decisions, federal, economic, and irreversible, that reshaped a valley, erased a landscape, and scattered families who had called this place home for generations. Every summer afternoon on that water floats above those decisions. If your family has roots in this valley, I would like to hear their story. Until next time.